As it's almost starting. All right, now it's starting. I don't know how to do this. It's good practice, right? Just in case I have to do it again sometime in a different class. So crazy. Okay, so who would like to start?
Should we say our names so she knows who we are?
Sure. I'm Hillary. Really?
And Jeanette.
And Eva.
Good job.
Yeah.
So, going over the assignment, did you guys just answer the questions that were on the discussion board about Israel? What would you do? The threats to children and family? That's what I did because that's what I understood it to be.
Yeah, it's on the Jeffrey R. Holland talk.
The one where it shows the guy about the what is it called? The what would you do? The what would you do?
Yeah.
Is it that?
It's the one with the little like conversation bubble, and at the end, at the bottom of it, it says, read the following questions before watching the video below so you can ponder and watch them, and be sure you use specific phrases and quotes from Elder Holland's talks to inform your answers and discussion. So I answered those ones.
Okay.
And then it says at the end of your... Did you answer those ones?
Yeah, I answered those ones.
Yeah, Israel, what would you do under that click, or under that one?
Yeah, like what threats to children and family did Elder Holland mention, and how has Babylon influenced the development of the threat to children and families that you've chosen to address? Those ones?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. I did the right ones then, because
I was scared for a minute there, because I thought I did the wrong one.
No, well, because I read both of the things, and they had 3 questions on the other ones, and then 5 questions here, and I was, do I do all of them? Do I do just half of them? So,
do we have to turn this answers on island?
So anyway, you what?
No, we don't have to turn them in on island. Hillary's gonna copy and paste our link so she can see our discussion on it, so we don't have to turn on our answers. But we'll turn on our discussion right now, so this counts as our answers.
Sweet.
So what did you guys think about the first question, the threats to children and families?
He said, never check your religion at the door. I think that was, that made me tear up when he said that, which the basketball game was, I know who he's talking about, that's Dana Bobick. He used to be in our ward, and he's a super nice stand-up guy, and he said that, and I'm like, man, it sounds super familiar, and I asked my husband, he's like, oh yeah, that was Dana Bobick's story. He'd share that in a talk that he gave in second meeting, well, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe a long time ago. And so so I know that guy, and it was just really kind of crazy that it went full circle, but yeah, he says, well, we can do whatever you want because we pay good money, and I can say what I want, and yeah, we should always be a good example all the time, you know, try our best to be a good example, and never check your religion at the door, because that is going to reflect on who we are as a person. So it was just sad.
It is sad.
And that affects our children as well, is, you know, depends on if we're so super nice at church and then we get home and we're like, you know,
opposite.
You know, being not kind people in general, then you know, our children see that and they will emulate us, good and bad.
It's true. It's so true. Yeah, I love the question. In the question it says, what doors do you have a tendency to check your religion, and how are you going to address this? And I was just thinking, I was like, what door? And I was just like, sit at a restaurant or, and all that stuff. And I think everything just comes down to, for me, just kind of like, honestly, I don't know what doors. Like basically right now I'm taking some like family advocacy, and I'm taking, I want to be a social worker and all that stuff. And it's something that I know that I have to make that conscious effort to not check my religion off. Like I have to stand up for my religion. But I know that honestly speaking, like no one is perfect. And so we have to, like for me, I have to constantly strive to make sure that I do those little things each day to help me point back to Christ. Because I know, like even Peter in the Bible, he was the closest to Jesus Christ, and he denied Jesus Christ 3 times. And I know that it wasn't his intention to do that, but it was just something that came out of fear and out of, you know, and just in the moment. And then he recognized that, whoa, I can't believe I did that. And Jesus Christ said, like, wow, like you're going to deny me. And so basically, it's just like really those little things that we do each day and making that conscious effort. Like having my purpose, like when I'm having a job interview or when I'm engaged in something, like recognizing, letting people know who I am, and like voicing out my opinion so that, I guess just really helping me understand that before I get into something, before I get into a job, if I get into an organization, I should help myself recognize and help people recognize that this is who I am. And not in a kind of like a, weird way or a way to like make people feel weird, but just in a way that they would respect me and I would respect them too.
That's interesting. What I thought about with the threats to children and families, he said when things got too sinful or there was too much secularization in society or life with the Gentiles was destroying the moral code and commandments God had given them, the children of the covenant would be sent fleeing into the wilderness to reestablish Zion and start all over again. So I thought, okay, secularization is a threat that I think we're facing right now with our families, and it's also the destroying of the moral code and the commandments because of, just the things that are going on throughout the world. And with the personal behavior, like you said, check your religion at the door. Like, if we choose to be one person one day and another person another day, obviously the kids are going to be confused as to who they should be or who they should follow. And then the following question is said, how has Babylon influenced the development of the threat that you guys have chosen? So I don't know what you guys chose, but I chose life. So what is it called? The sanctity of life. And obviously, people are having more abortions, like they want to legalize abortion. And I think that is a big deal, and it also is a threat to families. And it's very influenced by society right now because people want to end unwanted pregnancies and also to prevent babies with like defects or just people who have the inability to support them or to care for their children, and they make it a social issue. So they, like a women's right to choose and things like that. And I think that that's a big thing right now. I don't know. What did you guys do your threat on?
I chose divorce, and that's like I think people, get married, and like what Elder Hans said, it's like a starter marriage or a nice starter wife, or like you're supposed to get married for forever, for eternity. And I think that if we go into marriage with that attitude of, oh, this is starter, this is temporary, that you're not first chance of or first problems that you're going to run into, you're like, oh, I'm done, this is too much work, I don't want to deal with it. And if you I guess if you have kids, you're never gonna be without that person. You're always gonna have like, okay, you pick the kids up. It's always gonna be fine. This is always gonna be okay. The kids, or birthday parties and Christmas and Easter and all the holidays. My parents divorced, and my dad left for the first 3-4 years after the divorce, so that was an issue then. But it never really came an issue because I don't know. I guess he didn't want us. He pretty much had a midlife crisis and decided that he didn't want to be married with kids anymore. So that affected myself. It affected my brother and my two younger sisters. It affected my mom. It affected our extended family. I think divorce. People think, oh, it's just me and my spouse, but that's not the case. That hand reaches very long, and it affects many people just because you decided this is just too hard and I don't want to deal with it. And people are imperfect, and I think youth today think that marriage is 50-50, but it's really 100 to 100%, not 50-50. And we walk into this marriage thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I finally found the love of my life, and now it's going to be easy for the next, 50 years or whatever. But that's not the case.
No. Well, what I think about divorce and marriage and things these days is that so many people see like marriage as like tissue paper. Like when you get it dirty, you just throw it away. Like, it's just as easy like, oh, something went wrong and I sneezed into it, and so now it's dirty. Like, and you just toss it away. And I'm like, man, that's not marriage. Yeah, it's not. I mean, but that's how people use it. Like, unfortunately, we've had friends who had been married and divorced within 3 months before.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And it was in our first year of marriage, and so we watched these people get married and divorced. Like, we had gotten married like 2 months before them, and then they got married, and 6 months later we're like, you're divorced? Like, what? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
What happened? Do you know what? I'm curious now. What happened?
I have no idea, to be honest with you, because they're my husband's friends, and we didn't get into like details with them about it because he's very like standoffish. But it just is sad because like it's not easy being married. You have to give and take a lot, and you have to persevere through the bad days and then enjoy the good days. But you don't just give up like the moment that it gets a little rough. Like, it's work. Like, marriage is work. And these days, marriage is seen as a convenience. Like, oh, I'm married, to this great guy. And the moment that your marriage starts to be like, well, like, he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, or, she doesn't do all the things that she used to do, or then it's like, well, it's not worth it, so I'm just going to toss it away.
Well, it sounds like, totally projecting, but they get married for 3 months. It sounds like they came into one problem, or maybe they shouldn't have got married in the first place. Like, I think people like, oh, we're in love, we're going to get married, but did you talk about all the big stuff? Like, where you can live? What about schooling? How many kids are you going to have?
Yeah.
What happens after that? If you don't agree upon those things, you need to figure out common ground.
I don't think people do that.
They think, well, that you don't, maybe they didn't date long enough. I know couples like that they didn't date and get to know each other, so then they get married, and they're like, wait a minute. What? Who are you?
Yeah. I mean, and that totally makes sense, because especially, and they were LDS, they got married in the temple. Like, you would think that they had gone, I mean, maybe I'm so naive, but I would have assumed that they would have gone through, like, all the conversations that you need to have in order to get married. But
I don't think people do. I really
don't think so either. I think LDS people are the worst about it too.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, they assume you're a member of the church and you have a temple recommend, so you must be a good person and we can get along and we can make it work. But you really need to get to know that person and see if it's going to work. Because I think there's more than one person you can marry and still be happy with, but
Mhm.
you are the common factor of that. And if you can't make it work and make yourself happy, are you expecting this other person to make you happy? Because that's not going to work either.
I totally agree. Good thoughts. Eva, what are you doing your threat on?
My thread was on family and like porn, like
And what?
just kind of like not so it's like marriage and addiction.
To porn?
Yeah. So it's just kind
Oh,
of
okay.
can you see me? Okay, you can see me. Okay. Okay, sweet. So mine is it has to do with like drinking and how a lot of the times like people especially more of like the male, the husband, like
Mhm.
they go back to just when things get hard, they go back to like drinking and relying on alcohol. And with that, it kind of affects marriage. And it's something that it it used to be like a problem, like a huge problem before, but now it's kind of like gay and like divorce and all that stuff is like taking over, you know. But really like drinking is something that and alcohol is something that actually affects like people's relationship in their homes. And on my mission, like I just yeah, it's just really sad to see like how people they lose a lot of things just from um subjecting themselves to material things. And so that's something that I feel like is a threat in families too. Like drinking and doing those things that would not make us to spend time with our family. Because when someone starts drinking and when someone starts like, smoking and all that stuff, it just takes the spirit away. And you're addicted instead of being like focused on your family, you're focused on what you are addicted to. And that way it like blocks your relationship and communication and everything just goes down.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Me too. That's
Yeah. Those are some good points. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says, how does Elder Holland's description of Babylon and Israel coincide with defending the doctrine of the family in these latter days? Does anyone want to tackle that one?
Can you say it again?
How does Elder Holland's description of Babylon and Israel coincide with defending the doctrine of the family in these latter days?
Okay. So actually today I logged into my Google account and what did I see? I saw like pictures of different women and I'm just like I did not ask for this. Like what is this? Like I'm like, oh my goodness, like really seriously, like, and then I had to like go through my page, my Google account, and I had to like block all those pictures that I saw, and I'm just like, this is an example of like Babylon, like even in my room,
Yeah.
even on my laptop, I'm seeing Babylon, and so like for me, like what can I do to call out to defend and to avoid all this stuff? It's just kind of like making sure that I block the pictures on my Google account and really like Babylon is everywhere. And for instance, like with the video that we watch about porn, um, there were some of the guys and some of the family, some of the people, not only guys but girls too, they talked about how they were 8 years old and they didn't plan to see something like that. But just from seeing it the first time and then seeing the second time, they become addicted and because of that, like it becomes a problem to them and also to their family. And so it's just so like innocent of how you know, children, husbands, wife, everyone can be exposed to Babylon. And if we don't truly know like the doctrine and who we are and truly what the danger that comes from porn, um, it's gonna affect families and it's not gonna start just like very seriously. It's very, very simple, just by logging into Google and you did not ask for it and it just shows up. And it could be like I'm not married, but it could be my son or my daughter that logged into their Google account and so something like that. And so it's really sad. But then a way we can kind of like avoid that is I know there's some families um, at BYU Idaho or just like some religion families that I know. They make sure that they put their computers in the living room so that they can see where like what's happening. And sometimes some people have even like gone to the extent of like blocking some websites in their house. And so those are some ways that in the home we can be able to avoid to call Israel and to
Yeah.
avoid Babylon.
Right, we talk about our home as our safe place, as our place of peace and place of comfort, but I think Satan is strong, and he's trying to attack at home, women and children. And we can use, like what you're saying, Eva, about the internet and not asking for it. That also comes in through TV, and then kids see stuff at school, and like the porn video, I was kind of drawn back by okay, number one, why do the adults have porn where the children can obviously see it, and then the children obviously that were not comfortable enough to go talk to their parents or tell their parents what was going on, and then the physical, like your brain actually feeds that and has that addiction, like a chemical reaction to that, and it just keeps getting more and more and more, and you can't get enough. Like drug addicts are the same way. That's why they overdose, is they just keep needing more, and they need that high. And I think porn is the exact same way. And also TV, some stuff, everything's rated. And I think when I was a kid, PG-13 was,
R.
yeah.
It was R when you were a kid.
Yes.
You wouldn't. No, all the PG stuff. PG-13 right now is R.
Exactly, and I'm sitting there going, I'm watching the movie just with my husband and I ask him, what is this rated? Like, and he's like, it's PG-13. I'm like, really? Because this is a little bit too much for me right now. And it's just they're just up in the ante. This wasn't gory enough, or there's not enough swear words in this, and we gotta make it better, and we gotta make it, and we're getting desensitized by what they show in movies and on TV and even like there's Y7 stuff. I'm thinking there's no way I'm gonna let my 6-year-old or 8 or 9-year-old watch that. I mean, that's like for a 12-year-old kid, and I'm like, I'm not gonna let my 12-year-old kid watch that either, because this is just too much is too much. It's where do you draw the line? I think TV and Nick Jr. and that's it.
Oh man, and like pop in a video. We have the videos that you can watch. Those are the ones you can watch. Other than that, leave it off. The whole thing's just crap.
I know.
When I was reading the question, I thought about how he was describing Babylon and Israel. Like Israel always ran away from Babylon, as Babylon crept closer. And he also talks about how Lehi fled, even Jerusalem, because Babylon was at the door. So God told him to leave, right? And he said, from what he said, this is a quote. He said, "This is a worldwide broadcast to an increasingly international church, but it is of interest to all who celebrate the restoration of the gospel that the colonization of America was born of a group fleeing from their former homelands in order to worship as they wished. A distinguished scholar of the Puritan settlement in America described this experience as Christianity's errand into the wilderness." And then he said, although we now do not run from Babylon, we he said, one of the mighty changes of the last days is we no longer think of Zion as where we are going to live, like how they fled from everybody and moved to the west, like the pioneers for Zion, but we think of how we are going to live. And so I thought, man, just like you guys were saying, like, you have to protect your own home, and you have to make, like, Zion within your home, no matter where you live. Like, you've got to do as much as possible to keep those things out, like you said, like with the TV and with the internet, and try and figure out ways to defend yourself and defend your family. And I think that's a big, big part of defending the family and defending the doctrine of the family, is to try and protect them from the garbage that the world tries to put inside your kids and your family, like in their heads and stuff.
You made me. I really like what he said. After that, he said the Zion thing. He says unspoken applications. I think that really means a lot. Is like, this is not only for just this instant that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Through lots of things. And in my other class, there's Brother Tim Redrick, I think his name was, and he said, like TV and iPhones and internet is all very good, but he says, he said, who is the master? Am I the master of the iPhone, or is it the master of me?
I remember that one.
Yeah.
And it was where they were at the park, and it's like, Mom, look at me, watch me. And too many people are looking down at their phone, like, okay, just a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
great, hon, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's true. That is so true. We have to be careful. So true.
Yeah. Because I know, like, there's addiction, and there's a wide range of addiction. Like, you can be addicted to drugs or alcohol or porn, but I also think you can be addicted to your iPhone. Like, if it's part of you, if you've seen those people that are, my husband worked at long story short, he worked at a construction site with these huge cranes dropping these large, like if it fell on you, it would crush you. And he saw people on their, the sidewalk was closed, and they were on their phone looking down at their phone, and they walked right into the construction site and had no idea what was going on. And I'm like, well, that's, I don't know if that's, I don't know what to call that, really. But
that's just stupidity, no.
Yeah. You need to pay attention to what's going on around you. And I think if we're aware of what's going around us, that would be very helpful, especially in that guy's predicament.
Well, and so as you were talking about that, it just made me think of other addictions. Like, it sounds kind of silly, but when you're talking about severe addictions of, like, morality issues, right? But there are other addictions that cause us to lose the spirit, or cause us to draw away from our family or from our, like, responsibilities. And I know this sounds silly, but I think one addiction that many people have is is sugar. And that sounds silly, but if you allow it to consume you, obviously you're not going to be in the best physical health that you could be, and so it takes your time away from your family, or sometimes food. This is a long shot, but like, some people are overly addicted to food, and so it controls them, like any addiction, any addiction, video gaming, internet chat rooms, or
music too.
Well, music, yeah, and I think that any addiction that we allow to, consume us takes us away from our responsibilities as disciples, as mothers, as children, as, anything that it inhibits us from doing what we need to be doing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like, too much is too much of something. Everything should be in moderation. And I'm the mom that stands in the kitchen with all the kids in the other room eating a cookie. Like, seriously, that is my addiction. Like, I can't, a food or sugar, it's not necessarily food, it's just like candy. because I'm rewarding myself for something, which I mean that's not healthy. Or I just want to eat it, and so I eat it anyways. I think it feeds back to my dad. I'm blaming everything on my dad today. My dad, because when we were kids, we weren't allowed to have white sugar in the house or white flour in the house. We weren't allowed to have like boxed cereal or any kind of convenience foods. And so when my dad left, my parents got divorced, my mom started buying candy and stuff. And so it was like something that I couldn't have that now I could have. And I didn't know when to say stop. And it's gotten better. And it's not like I shoved 5 cupcakes in my mouth. I just would sit there and savor my, like my cup of Hawaiian punch at my grandma's house, because we didn't get that at home. It was something you sat and you enjoyed and you savored it. Well, now I'm the mom and I can buy all the Hawaiian punch I want. And, it's just like, when is too much? It's, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that things that are addiction, like you said, they can really take away from your life. Like, they really can. And you wouldn't assume that when you first start down that path. I mean, just like porn. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not. It's obviously very far.
No. It is the same
because it's not a big deal.
But it's the same trigger in your mind when somebody's addicted to porn versus I'm eating a cookie, or I'm eating a licorice, or if you're if you're addicted to internet gambling, or if you're addicted to your phone. It's like the same what is your brain? What is
connections?
That?
Yeah, it's like the high that you get, like
the endorphins and the dopamine are like, woohoo, we're having fun and this is awesome. And you get that fix, and no matter what, it's that chemical reaction in your brain that makes you want to continue to do it and do it and do it and do it. And
that's why addiction is so hard to overcome.
Yeah. Because you have those triggers that trigger it, and then once you get that, just a little bit of that, you want more and more and more and more. So.
Oh my gosh. Good point. Okay, let's move on. The next question is, what characteristics and attributes did Elder Holland expound on that will make us more effective family advocates?
He said, what did I write down? Judge righteous judgment. Grateful at about the girl with the snow cone hair. He said, be grateful that she's at church and help her to be at her best. Pray to see what you should say, or what should be said.
You should say, yeah.
And then he says, we are called upon every day to reflect our own judgments, which I really like that, because every decision I make may point me at, I don't think that I'm on a path per se. I am on a path, but go with me for a minute here. It's when I make a choice, I get turned, and sometimes it's a right choice, and I get, I'm going forward, but sometimes I make a not great choice, and so I take 2 steps back, and sometimes a little bit to the left and the right and behind me, and I think it's a circle, and we just keep on turning as we're on this path, and we can spin off the side, we can go backwards and go forwards, we can spin off to the right or to the left. And I think every choice we make, even if it's this insignificant thing, is going to affect us sometimes forever or years down the line. And not saying it doesn't really matter what you eat for lunch as long as it's healthy, but everything matters. And your kids and your spouse are watching. We just have friends of ours. They've been married for a year less than us. So 12 years. They have 2 kids. They were married in the temple. We went on vacation with them. They were, our country neighbors, so they lived like a mile or so down the road. And they went to church with us. We just found out that she left him and the kids, and she's with a boyfriend, like 12 years her junior boyfriend, and yeah. I know, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, no wonder why she's not returning my calls or my texts, because how do you really say that? I just, like,
oh my
and
gosh.
I'm sure she didn't get there by one I'm sure she didn't go to work and think, I'm going to cheat on my husband and leave him and get my name taken off the church rolls. And
Yeah, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't an overnight.
yeah, it was like these small little choices that she made on a daily basis that led her off the path. And I bet she couldn't think of what was my first choice that I made to step off the path. I bet she couldn't remember that. But she got to where she is somehow today. You know, and that's how Satan leads us away, gradually, you know, one step at a time. And with us, you know, not knowing it, or not realizing it, I guess. It's just sad.
I wrote down the same things you did, like judge righteous judgments and try to be our best with a desire for her to be her best about the lady with the rainbow color hair. And then also, like, talking about how to be more effective family advocates. He said compassion and love must never be interpreted as compromising commandments. Because, and I really struggle with this, especially for the next two questions, because he said, as the marvelous George MacDonald said, in such situations we are not bound to say all that we believe, but we are bound not to even look like what we do not believe. And so, and he also said that Latter-day Saints are called upon to be the leaven in the loaf, the salt that never loses its savor, and the light set upon a hill, to never to be hidden under a bushel. So obviously you want to do, like, you want to judge correctly, but you also want to realize that you have a responsibility to God, and you shouldn't make compromises, like, you know, that in order to, what is it called, to be accepting. I don't know if that's the right word. But
yeah, to be accepted. Yeah.
Well, or to be like I know this kind of goes with the other two questions at the bottom, but I have a good friend who left the church, and she's married to a woman, and they have a baby boy who's 2, I think, and they're having another baby in July. And I've known her since I was in like 3rd grade, and we've always been really, really good friends. We went to like young women's together and girls camp and like all these other crazy stuff together. We even went to the same college, and we have kept in touch off and on for the last 7 years or something. But I was just talking to my spouse about it tonight, and I thought, it's so hard for me to determine how to be accepting of her and not accepting of her behavior. Like,
yeah, to break the sin from the sinner.
Yeah. And then he talks about that. Like, he talks about how we're called not to condemn others, but asked to make judgments. You know? And hopefully good judgments. But I think that it's harder in real life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you actually put it to, like, something you actually have to do,
Yeah.
it's harder. So, Eva, what do you think?
I can't even imagine, like, someone, because I had a companion who, before she went on her mission, like, her family, they were doing good, and then during her mission, she started receiving, like, letters and just kind of, like, information here and there of how her brother might be gay. And this was something that she was really nervous about, and she's like, how am I going to go back home and treat my brother, you know, like, and she's a missionary. She's been, like, all those long while for 18 months, like, studying doctrine, and she's grown her testimony, and how is she going to show compassion and then also, you know, still accept him for who he was. But I definitely, like, can tell, like, I haven't experienced something like that, but I can imagine that it'll be very difficult for people. And honestly, I think it's going to take a lot of prayer to be able to have that strength to do something like that.
Why did they even tell her while she's on her mission? She can't do anything about it. That's so frustrating.
It's true.
They would tell her that. like, for instance, my husband was on his mission, and his mom got really depressed. I mean, where she didn't come out of her room. They didn't, I know it sounds horrible, but they didn't tell him that. They just kept it a secret from him, and he found out after his friend wrote him a letter and asked how his mom was, and he's like, she's fine, what are you talking about? You know, but it was months after the fact, and then he came home, you know, shortly thereafter. But, I mean, I guess you have to be careful about what you write in your letters to the sisters and the brothers, or the, you know, elders.
The elders are out there serving.
I know. Be careful, because it should be like uplifting and spiritual, and not like,
true.
you
It's
know,
true, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I felt really bad for her, but she's really strong too, and like the family didn't really come out like directly saying like he's gay, but they just say giving like a little bit of information here and there, or like
Oh my gosh.
it's funny, but anyway, she was strong, and I think she's doing good right now. But I love like I think the thing that really really stood out to me, um, like with that question was the one that talks about like kind of like what you were saying, Hillary, like having compassion and being loyal to the commandment. And even as a social worker, like I have commandments, I have social work commandments, not just gospel commandment. I have the commandments of the gospel and also commandments of social work, social ethics, laws and rules and all that stuff. And I really have to really figure out as I'm going into this field to find that balance of showing that I care about my clients and then also being firm about the rules and the laws and the boundaries and all that stuff. And so like I feel like it's something that I really want to work on. Like I really want to just see how I can volunteer and help people and still figure out how I can be firm and be loyal to commandments and also show compassion to people.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to the next two questions. There's really very close, so we're just going to do them together. So, according to what you've learned from Elder Holland's talk, what obligation, if any, do you have in a scenario like the one in the video below? Did you guys watch the video about the father and the son
Yeah.
in the diner? And he's like, "Dad, I'm gay." That, you know.
Yeah.
And then the dad freaks out, and that was in Provo. Like they did that in Provo. So, and then it says, if you were a customer at this restaurant and observed this father-son exchange, what principles or attributes did Elder Holland teach that should guide your response? What do you guys think?
Well, it's hard to decipher or distinguish between the sin and the sinner. I guess that's what the father's trying to do, is he loves his son, but he doesn't like what he's doing. It's a behavior, not the person. And what else did he say? Still, there's a wide variety of beliefs in this world, and there's moral agency is not one of those entitled to act as if God is mute on the subject.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to love that person but not like what they're doing or agree with what they're doing. My younger sister doesn't agree. She's baptized, but parents got divorced and we were inactive, and she chose a completely different route. She says there is no God, and that I'm an idiot for going to church and believing what I do and teaching my kids, about God, because there is no, anyways. Blah, you get the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I still love my sister, but we have completely different views on what this life here on earth is all about and what we should and shouldn't be doing. And I still love my sister, but it's hard to differentiate between her and her behavior, because she's doing her behavior is not correct, and it's difficult. It's way easier to say than to do that.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's so true. Oh, see, I wrote down the same thing you did. I said you have the obligation to love the person, but you have to stand up for the truth. And so, like, being a customer, like Elder Holland, he said, one thing that I really got out of what he said is that I know of no more important ability and no greater integrity for us to demonstrate in the world from which we cannot flee than to walk that careful path, taking a moral stand according to what God has declared and the laws he has given, but doing it compassionately and with understanding and great charity. And I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be easy. Like, how do you do that? Like, you take a moral stand, but then you compassionately tell the person that they're wrong. Like, when I watched the video clip and I saw the older couple, I don't know if you remember this, but the older couple in the background, and the woman's like, "There's a 12-step program." I'm like, yeah. How, like, how hard is it to love someone but yet compassionately tell them that they're wrong? Like, I
It's
don't know.
true.
I hope I never have to do that with my children. And I mean, you know what I mean? Like, in any circumstance, like, like, listen,
It's
I
really
love
hard
you,
to be, well,
but
it's really hard to be honest and kind at the same time, and I think that's what he's asking us to do, is
yeah,
to be like, what they all taught you, and when you're giving, critical thinking or being, you're criticizing somebody, but really, say first give them something like a compliment, and then say, "Oh, this paper stinks." It's like it's kind of like that. Like, I love you very much, but your choice is not exactly the but, which means just forget what I just said, but I'm going to tell you what I really think now. Da 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 da. Yeah, it's
yeah.
hard to do
Well,
that.
and he says the same thing. He's like, it's a hard thing to do. Distinguish perfectly between the sin and the sinner. And he says, I know of few distinctions that are harder to make, or at least harder to articulate. But we must lovingly try to do that. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Like,
I tried to lovingly tell my sister that she is completely and absolutely wrong, that there is a God. I didn't get angry. I think that's one of my downfalls, is I just get emotional. I get mad. I'm like, I just want to shake her and say, what is wrong with you? Why do you believe that? Anyways.
heathen. Ah.
Yeah, I just want to smack her upside the head and knock it out of her brain or something like that, and I just think to be calm and to be rational and be kind and loving and to honestly tell somebody without letting the emotional anger or fear or whatever you're feeling get in the way of what you're trying to tell somebody, because if the anger or the fear creeps into what you're saying, all they're going to hear is the anger or the fear. They're not going to hear the words you're actually saying. And I can tell that with my kids when I'm upset and I'm like, wow, what do you do? And they're like, all I heard is you yelling. I didn't know what you were saying. But then it just doesn't work. And so I figured out that if I get into a situation where it's making me upset, if I pause and think, okay, what am I feeling? Okay, take that emotion and then say, okay, but this is what's really going on with my kids. That helps immensely. My husband and other, like my sister with the church, God and everything. It just helps me take the emotion out of it, and then I can be rational and they will listen to me, versus if you're upset or crying or angry and yelling, all they hear is that, the emotion and not the words.
I agree. Eva, do you have anything to add?
Um, yeah, just kind of like what you were saying. As you were talking, the two of you were talking, I was just thinking of, I always go back to mission experience because I just came back from my mission. And so,
That's
and
good,
that's
though.
the
It's good.
Exactly. It's good. Remember your mission.
Yay! And mostly when we talk to people that kind of want to go into Bible bashing, or when we're trying to get an investigator to somewhere where they don't really see it themselves, I noticed that the skills and the techniques that we use is just kind of like basically past psychiatry was just like asking inspired questions. When we ask inspired questions as missionaries, it helps people think and kind of like make that connection. Inspired question is kind of like a way that you ask a question and it kind of helps them to connect to who they are and their connection with God. And so I was thinking, I was like, that can be a really good way to also apply to people that don't, like, we want to show compassion to them, but we don't also want to defend ourselves. And just kind of like inspired questions, and then also bearing testimony too as a missionary. Like bearing testimony is a way we stand our ground, and then listening to them is a way we show that we want to connect with them. And then inspired questions is a way to show them that we want to see where they're coming from. And so like those three things is something that I was just like, oh, like those three techniques can be applied to even just like social work or like normal life. And so that was something that was going through my mind that I'm like, maybe I have to see how I can apply this, you know. So
Exactly. Good point. Good point. Okay, so I think we did it all. Does somebody want to sum it all up?
I can. We covered a lot. I will try my best.
yeah,
Do my best.
we did.
Zion is we think of Zion, we think of it as a specific place, but it's really wherever because the church is international, it's wherever we live. Zion is in our home, and it's how we live. Be an example. Have I guess I said have unspoken applications. Check your religion at the door. Respond to any situation, and make that situation better by how you respond and react to that. We are sons and daughters of God of eternal worth. Pray to see what should be said. Judge righteous judgment. What else? Well, we are called upon every day to reflect judgment. There's a wide variety of beliefs in this world. Moral agency is not one that's entitled to act as if God is mute on the subject. Distinguish between the sin and the sinner. And when Eva was just talking, it said connect. She said connect. And it said, in my mind, it was connect with the sinner and not the sin. To see them as a person, as a daughter or son of God, and not to see their behavior. What we talked about are threats, abortion, addiction, and using the addiction as a crutch or to use it to numb ourselves, and divorce. And we cannot no longer run from Babylon because it's knocking at our door. We have to deal with it in a way, in such a way that we can stop it at our door. And sometimes it's going to sneak in, like with your Google account. Bless you for that. Wow. I didn't do that. With your Google account and with TV, we have to be aware of what's around us and think, okay, that should not be in my home. Because I think even those, little things will affect ourselves and those around us. And we should be a good example always.
Good.
Was anything else to add? Oh, I wanted to ask you guys, when he was telling that story about the police officer that went to that home with those children and they didn't have any food, I guess what I wanted was the rest of that story to see kind of like what happened, I guess. But
you know what? He didn't say what happened afterwards.
No, I know, and I'm like, why didn't you tell me?
He just said that he would come back in the morning, but he didn't say anything. He just said that, like, when he was wrapping it up in his talk, he was saying,
I know.
There are not going to be enough police officers out there. Like, you need to kind of do what you can for others around you because there are not enough police officers to take care of everyone, type thing.
Wait, yeah, said, what did he say? He said something. Yeah, there's not going to be enough police officers. There's never going to be enough police officers in the world. Mm-hmm. But I think then I wrote down, but there's more and more members in the world, and I think that if we touch but one person, I think we made a difference. Like if we made their life better, or if they, we helped them out, or we're a good example, even though we're not necessarily know that we were a good example or knew we helped them out, or sometimes we say, like the Spirit inspired me to say something the other day to a lady at church that I don't really know her, but I just felt I should come up and say something to her. And she just looked at me, and she just gave me this biggest hug ever. I don't know, but I think if we follow the Spirit and if we help just one person and show our kindness, that will make the world a better place. That's our one voice. I guess if we take our one voice and combine it with everybody else's voice in the church, that we will make a difference. There, that makes sense.
That's so true.
All right, good job, everybody. Thanks so much for meeting. Sorry it was late.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for meeting later. I know I wouldn't have made. I was like 20 minutes late. So thanks for pushing it back an hour. I really appreciate it.
Okay. We're glad you're able to go to the temple.
Yeah.
It's a long drive.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you guys.
You guys have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.